Welcome back to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. The topic of this episode is going to be Bryce Harper reporting the spring training and the media session he had. Because, of course, right when Bryce Harper comes, WIP's there, John Clark's there, Todd Zalecki, this, that, and the third, just trying to get all the information they can for their stories. And I have about 7 points I'm going to go through on the questions that they were asked and Bryce's responses in level of importance according to me, because Bryce did give some interesting answers in this 15-minute interview he gave earlier this morning. So the first question that he was asked was the not elite question. Todd Zalecki asked it to where, does it give him any more motivation? What is he going to use it for? Just his overall thoughts on when Dave Dombrowski said that he doesn't think Bryce Harper's elite anymore or didn't have an elite season at the end of your press conference. And Bryce Harper says, "For me, it was wild. The whole situation of that happening," Harper said. "Part of Harper's reaction comes from the standard he felt was set when he started negotiating with the club in 2019. And this is quote by Bryce Harper. "When we first met with this organization, it was, hey, we're always going to keep things in-house, and we expect you to do the same thing," Harper said. "And so when that didn't happen, it kind of took me for a run a little bit." So obviously Bryce Harper is still not over those comments made by Dave Dombrowski. Now, later in the interview, they did ask him if they squashed the beef or whatever, or if they talked since the initial response that Dave Dombrowski said on Foul Territory about a week or two later after the press conference. He said he spoke with Bryce Harper. So Bryce said they spoke again. But I mean, in all reality, I think that relationship is completely fractured and completely done, to where, me personally, I wish Dave would leave this organization today, because it's just like there was no need to say that. You should know the player Bryce Harper is, and if that's your organization philosophy, and then you go back on your word. Now, I get it. You were with the Red Sox in 2019, but you should know that kind of stuff. And for as much as Dave Dombrowski pisses me off, he does have the politically correct answer almost all the time, to where it just baffles me, to where why would he say that about Bryce Harper? Like, the guy that came to Philadelphia, the guy that started this whole thing, that the guy before this one playoff series against the Dodgers was one of the best playoff performers of all time. A 4-game sample size is not going to change that. And I really think, and I don't think this is like hyperbole, like age is catching up with Dave Dombrowski, to where he's not as sharp as he used to be. You see that with the moves, and I think it's a combination of him getting up there in age and the game of baseball just passing Dave Dombrowski. Because when he was back in the day, he could swindle his way to trades to where he was getting the most value. Because the sentiment around Major League Baseball about Dave Dombrowski outside of Philadelphia is, oh, this guy, if he wants a guy, he's going to go get it. He's one of the best to ever do it. Now, granted, he does have a Hall of Fame resume and he's going to get in, but he hasn't shown that in Philadelphia. And this is just another example of that with Bryce Harper. Like, you ruined your relationship with Bryce Harper. And of course, Bryce Harper said they talked about it, they're fine, but that never leaves someone's conscious to where they might be civil because they work together, but you're not going to see, I guess, the collaboration between Bryce and Dave Dombrowski anymore. They'll probably only speak to each other when they have to. And this is literally all on Dave Dombrowski, to where I'm just counting down the days to when he's out of the organization and Preston Mattingly gets the GM job, because I know how Bryce talks to the media, but it's like this 15-minute like presser, it felt like something was off. It felt like the juice was gone. Now, he looked very excited when he was talking about the WBC, but when we were talking about the Phillies, it was just like something's off with Bryce. And I remember in 23 when he was talking to the media about that he calls it, or he listens in the WIP, hit a homer for Chuck. Like, there was a different look in his eye. And I don't know, man. Obviously, Dave Dombrowski's not going to leave the organization this year, because you wouldn't make that change right before the season or even mid-season. So I think it's just something we're going to have to deal with for at least one more year. Um, and then the next question, or the next important topic I want to talk about based on that presser, was the 4 spot. And Bryce Harper was not sugarcoating what he said in this quote. He said, because they asked him about the possibility of hitting 2 instead of 3, flip-flop him and Schwarber. He said, I think it's a huge impact in the 4 spot, Harper said. I think the numbers in the 4 spot weren't very good last year either for our entire team. So whoever's in that spot is going to have a big job to do. And of course, he's referring to either Bomer, Garcia, JT, whoever's in that 4 spot. He made it known that it was not productive. And we all know it wasn't productive to where we were imploring Dave Dombrowski to go get a real four-hitter, and he has failed to do that for the 4th straight offseason. I think that pisses off Bryce Harper internally, of course, because it's like, you're going to call me non-elite, but you're not going to put me in this position to succeed or this team to where that's your job as a president of baseball operations. And like with the weird energy of Casty leaving, you would think, okay, the clubhouse, it's much better. But how does Alec Bohm feel about all this? Like with Aidan Miller coming up, Aidan Miller's locker's right next to Bomer. They're basically spotlighting the way for Miller to come in and take his position, taking ground balls at third, to where I think Dave Nabrowski missed the mark again on Alec Bohm, to where just trade him, let Otto Kemp play third, or Edmundo Sosa, let them split time, and then if Aidan Miller's ready to go by summertime, it's a much easier transition if Aidan Miller's taking those players' job compared to Alec Bohm. And it's just like there's so much pressure on Alec Bohm now because he knows someone's behind his shoulder, to where I feel like they should have just alleviated that, to where who's ever on the team, their spot is secure for the most part, to where they can just play loose, but you kept Alec Bohm on the roster, to where I don't know how it's going to shape up. I don't know how he's going to do in his walk year with Aidan Miller ready to go, because if Aidan Miller is stuck in AAA, but he's ready to go because Alec Bohm is blocking him, even if Alec Bohm's having a semi-productive year, that's dropping the ceiling of this team that is trying to win a World Series. And that's on Dave Dombrowski. And then the third point, so when they asked him about Kyle Schwarber and his free agency, he said, I thought Kyle was going to Cincinnati. Bryce figured the hometown pool would get it done. He also states that he didn't talk to him much in regards to free agency out of respect for the process. States that they are going to do what's best for them and their family. Similar with JT, he's excited to have them both back. To where, I don't know, I feel like that was a kind of interesting comment, to where I get it. He wants to kind of, give those players their space in their free agency, but wouldn't you think he'd be like pushing to keep Kyle Schwarber back, to where I understand like they're going to do what's best for their family, but your job as a face of a franchise is to do everything you can to bring in those players, to where I don't know if Bryce Harper is just like tired of the organization, not in the sense of he wants to ask for a trade or something like that, just more of like, look, I'm going to show up to work. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to have a good time doing it. But if you expect me to kind of be the, be the front man, calling all these free agents when you're publicly shaming me in end of year press conferences, I think that's the dynamic right there, where he's pissed off at Dave Dombrowski. I don't think he's pissed off at John Middleton, but it's kind of like he employed Dave Dombrowski, to where I really think you might not see Bryce Harper be as enthused as he is until Dave Dombrowski eventually leaves. I wish that was today, but he's not getting fired. He's not walking away right before the start of the season, so we got to get that out of our heads. But I just thought that was interesting in the sense of he thought Kyle Schwarber was going to Cincinnati. And then the most excited Bryce was in the presser had nothing to do with the Phillies. Interesting, right? Just goes back to the whole point of like, how fired up is Bryce about being a Philadelphia Philly? I really don't know. But he was talking about the WBC. He said, I can't wait to represent my country. There's nothing better. The feeling of putting USA on your chest and playing for something so much bigger than yourself, Harper said, and having Aaron Judge hit behind me is going to be a lot of fun. To where, I mean, of course, right? Like Bryce Harper grew up playing USA baseball with players like Manny Machado, Nick Castellanos, this, that, and the third. And it just fits his personality, to where Bryce Harper shines brightest when the stage is the brightest, in the sense of the playoffs, in the sense of the WBC. I'm not going off a 4-game sample size against the Dodgers. I'm simply not doing that, when career-wise his OPS is one of the best of all time. And it's going to be very nice for Bryce to be on the national stage again when he's not in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform, to where people can start to root for him a little bit. I feel like Bryce has definitely overcome the villain era once he got to Philadelphia and sent us to the World Series, but you still got your people out there, you're idiots. Like I saw this one guy from Barstool criticizing Bryce Harper, saying he hit 200 in his lone World Series appearance. Absolute clown, dude. We get it. Most of Barstool is just clickbaity, but get a freaking grip. But I think once he puts on that USA jersey, and if he hits a huge home run, that could also just shift the tide to where he'll be a full-on hero. And it's just going to be very nice to see Bryce Harper play with that passion again, because in 22, 23, even 21, like he had that, right? 24 he did, but it was a little diminished. It came out in the playoffs, but you didn't see that from Harper. You didn't see the pumping of the fist, the chest. You saw it that one game in LA, not in the playoffs, but when we clinched the division, when I think he tied the game up, lefty. But it's like, I don't know what's going on with Bryce Harper. I don't understand, like, if he's just getting older, if he's just kind of maturing in the sense where he's just calm, cool, and collective. I think Bryce Harper is the best version of himself when he has an edge and when he's literally playing for something. So I think we'll see that in the WBC for sure for the United States. But I really want to see that with Philadelphia. I need Bryce Harper. I need a pissed off Bryce Harper to where you could say the Dave Dombrowski not elite comments is going to lead to that. But I don't agree with that in the sense of his reaction today. I think he's just like, dude, I don't need to be motivated by you. I don't need to be motivated by a guy that's made countless bad moves in my time in Philadelphia. You're brought here to help us win a World Series and you haven't done that. To where it's more just animosity towards Dave. I don't think Dave was smart in his move by saying that. He should have just kept his mouth shut, gave the politically correct answer, said, look, Bryce, we're very confident what Bryce is going to do for us in the 2026 season. Just leave it at that. And now it's pivoted all the way into February. We're November, December, 4 months later, and we're still talking about it, to where we should be talking about mitts and gloves and bats and starting the season. But of course, we have to be talking about that. Thank you, Dave Dombrowski, for that. And then Bryce was asked about Nick Castellanos leaving the team. He gave a short response. He said, basically, he just wished him the best and talked about his playoff moments and called him a great guy to be around. So that was pretty interesting in the sense of, like, he just gave Nick Castellanos his props. I mean, their relationship goes back to USA Baseball. They played together on, I think, the U18 team. So I would never expect Bryce Harper to bash one of his friends. But yeah, I mean, with the Nick Castellanos situation, like, he reported to Padres camp today. He answered some questions. I posted on my TikTok. But after today, if we're still talking about Nick Castellanos when we're trying to win a World Series in 2026, we've completely missed the plot. Next topic. Bryce was asked about the Dodgers. Bryce said he loves what the Dodgers do. They run their team like a business and they spend their money the right way. They draft and develop well, and that leads them to having the ability to make big trades. He also stated that all the teams can do what they do, maybe not to the extent of the Dodgers financially, but they can draft well, they can develop well, to where he was basically just saying, like, of course, like, from the average baseball fan, they're seeing the Dodgers make all these signings, having a $400 million payroll, and they're simply thinking, oh, they're just paying for their players because they have the money and other teams simply don't, which is completely not true. One, they develop well enough and they draft well to where they have those players that can supplement the free agent acquisitions they do. But it just goes to the point of the cheap owners. And that's the biggest problem, to where even Manny Machado was talking at Padres camp today, and he said he said he effing loves what the Dodgers are doing. And that's coming from their biggest rival, to where how this lends into the 2027 potential lockout, it's simple. If the owners try to push for a salary cap, we will not see one game played in Major League Baseball in 2027, because the players are willing to sit out not just 1 year, they will sit out multiple years before they ever accept a salary cap, to where if the MLB ownership tries to do that and the 30 owners try to push for that, they're the dumbest group of billionaires you will ever meet, because of how much money they're going to lose, and they will still not get their job done. There's no way in hell that there's going to be a salary cap ever in Major League Baseball. It's not going to happen. The Players Association is the strongest union in sports, and they're not going to stop now. They're not going to be known as the Players Association that pivoted and let the owners push a salary cap. You think Bryce Harper's going to do that? You think Max Scherzer's going to do that? You're out of your freaking mind, to where I think the owners just need to get the head out of their ass and stop thinking there's going to be a salary cap, because they're not willing to spend the money. They're not willing to show their financial books, which Nick Castellanos also made a great point. I think a couple of years ago, they asked him, if you were commissioner for the day, what would you do? He said, I would make it a mandate that all 30 teams have to show their books, have to show what they're bringing in revenues and expense wise to see what they're really talking about. Because we don't know. The only team that's publicly traded is the Atlanta Braves, where we can see their books, but everyone else, we have no idea. So if you think your owner from a small market team like Miami, Minnesota, Colorado, this, that, and the third, you think they don't have the money to be able to spend and improve their ball club? Pittsburgh Pirates, they absolutely have the money. Of course, not like the Dodgers. The Dodgers have the TV deal. They have the Japanese market. They have this, that, and the third. So they're always going to be top tier, right? But if you're telling me as a major league franchise, you can't spend upwards of $160 to $180 million with trying to develop your players to where you can supplement them, you can always compete in Major League Baseball. Don't listen to that crap. So that just fires me up because I know where this is headed, and it's going to get real ugly with these CBA negotiations. So if the owners are smart, they won't even do that. They can focus on other things that they want, maybe getting an international draft. Maybe the players can push for not having a qualifying offer. Maybe that should be the forefront instead of trying to push for a salary cap, because they both know in their heart of hearts they are not going to achieve that. That's never going to happen. But we'll just have to see. That's also why I'm trying to soak up this 2026 season as much as possible, because if we don't have baseball in 2027, I mean, you don't know you're going to miss something until it's gone. I know I'm going to miss baseball so much to where I'm just trying to soak it in for 2026. And then my last point on the Bryce. Oh, yeah, that was a lockout thing. But Rob Thompson, this wasn't about the Bryce Harper press conference, but I thought I would just talk about it since I'm doing the episode tonight. Rob Thompson talked about the lineup. He said Turner, Schwarber, Harper, they're going to bat 1 through 3. Now, he didn't say what specific order. He just says he wants all 3 of them batting in the first inning. Where I think this is headed towards, I think it's going to be Trey, Bryce, Kyle. Just see if maybe that tends to Bryce Harper seeing some more pitches. I do think Kyle Schwarber has a better plate discipline approach than Bryce Harper, to where he can kind of deal with getting the majority of the balls to where, because they know their 4-hitter is not going to be anything special. Thank you, Dave Dombrowski, for that. And then Rob Thompson talked about who's going to be in the 4 spot. He's leaning towards Alec Bohm. I mean, and this is not Alec Bohm's fault. It's just utter insanity that we're doing this for the 4th straight year. And in reality, like, he is the best option. I personally would go with Adolis Garcia just to switch it up. And from a power perspective, just the threat of him able to send one to the moon compared to Alec Boehmer being more of a singles and doubles hitter. But I think they're just going to go Alec Bohm. He even mentioned JT. Oh my God. I mean, what are we doing? Am I in the twilight zone? Maybe we get a bat at the deadline, maybe, but it's just like it it just gives the fans that always say we're running it back, and we are running it back. Of course, we've made some additions, but it's like, just get a damn right-handed bat. Sign a Eugenio Suarez for 1 year, overpay a little bit, just change it up a little bit. I get it. Adolis Garcia is technically a change, but we're paying $30 million for the right field position, Casty and Adolis Garcia combined. Love me some Justin Crawford. Think he deserves every chance to be the opening day center fielder. But even if you would have put him in left, bring back Bader, send Marsh out to the gulag, whatever. It's just like they had a real opportunity to like try to draw the fans back in, because after 3 straight disappointing postseason exits, there's going to be the notion around the team that they just can't get it done. The DNA, the culture's just not it. To where, how do you change that? You bring someone in. I get it. They tried to get Bo Bichette. Cool. But they never had any intention of getting Bo Bichette to start the offseason. It was just when his team came to him, and then they were like, okay, well, this kind of makes sense, right? Maybe he's falling into our lap. Turns out that wasn't the case. Dave Dombrowski was played for a lapdog. But nevertheless, they just missed the boat, this opportunity to make some real additions, make some real changes, like Alec Bohm being back. And again, it's not really on Alec Bohm. It's just the thought of like him being in his walk year. You know you're not going to re-sign him. You know Aiden Miller's ready to come up. Why not just trade Alec Bohm? And I get it. You're probably not going to get the return on your investment that you think you deserve. But at some point, it's addition by subtraction. It's paving the way for a young kid to not be pressured by taking a veteran spot, which Alec Bohm kind of is now. We all think he's still young, but he's 29 pushing 30. Same way with Stoddard, same way with Marsh. They're not the daycare anymore. They're simply not. To where I just would have loved if Alec Bohm was gone. And that's not happening. Maybe Aiden Miller proves that he's ready to go. Alec Bohm's struggling. We ship him off at the deadline, but then you're really getting nothing for him. So it's just like, it's like 3 straight years of David Dombrowski, like overplaying his hand with Alec Bohm to where he's going to get to the point to where he gets nothing, just like what he did with Nick Castellanos, to where send Dave Dombrowski to the damn gulag. My God, get him out of this city. I am so sick of him, just his presence, the way he speaks, the ignorance, the just not care for pushing the meter to try to win a damn World Series. But this is not a Dave Dombrowski episode. This was just Bryce Harper giving his thoughts on the season, getting ready for spring training. There's a weird energy around this camp, man. It's just like negative this, negative that, and it's of course the media is going to push that, right? Letting Nick Castellanos almost report to camp or being on the roster when pitchers and catchers started. Another miss by Dave Dombrowski. What he did with Bryce Harper, to where Bryce Harper's first interview with everyone in spring training was like, the tone was just like so deflating. It was just so like, yeah, we got to be better. We're going to see what we can do in the playoffs. There's no fire behind this team, to where it's like, the real thought of running it back to where there's no juice in this team, from my opinion, from everyone speaking, to where it's like, you would think these guys would be like, we're going to do everything we can to go fight for the city. We got to get it done. I don't get that around this team, and I'm worried as hell. Now, maybe when they interview Marsh, when they interview Stott, when they interview Garrett Stubbs, there's going to be more energy. I have no freaking idea, dude. I'm just going to take everything for what it is. God willing, they make the playoffs. I think they're obviously going to make the playoffs. Maybe they get hot in October, and then we're not talking about all this negative stuff, because I need a parade down Broad Street, and I'm sure you guys too. But let me know your thoughts on the Bryce Harper press conference today. What do you think about Dave Dombrowski? What do you think about the Phils going into the 2026 season? Thank you guys, and that'll do it for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs.